Hello everyone, my name is Henry, a 54-year-old history professor at a modest community college in the rolling hills of Vermont, where I spend my days lecturing on ancient civilizations to eager young minds, married for 27 years to Vivian, with whom I share a quiet farmhouse and memories of 2 adult children who visit sporadically from their city lives far away. Our marriage, once vibrant with shared dreams and tender touches, has faded into a companionable routine marked by a profound loss of intimacy, leaving me often emotionally reflective, pondering the slow drift that has turned our once close bond into polite coexistence. We navigate our days with the familiarity of old habits, but beneath it all lingers a quiet resignation in Vivian's demeanor, as if she's accepted some unspoken finality that I haven't yet grasped. The abrupt chime of Vivian's phone pierced the serene quiet of our evening ritual, jolting me from the depths of my armchair where I'd been lost in a worn volume of Roman history, the sharp notification sound echoing off the exposed wooden beams of our living room like an unwelcome intruder, carrying with it a wave of inexplicable unease that disrupted the gentle rhythm of our shared silence. The air was thick with the comforting aroma of chamomile tea steaming from my mug on the side table, mingled with the faint, earthy scent of the logs crackling in the stone fireplace, and as I glanced up, I saw Vivian's hand dart toward her phone on the coffee table, her fingers, usually steady from years of tending our garden, hesitating for a fraction of a second before she silenced it, her expression shifting from relaxed to a subtle mask of composure. She set the device face down with deliberate care, the soft thud against the polished oak surface amplifying my sudden awareness of the growing emotional detachment between us, a detachment that had crept in like the autumn fog rolling over our fields. This initial disruption highlights the onset of emotional detachment as a precursor to suspicion, psychologically manifesting as Henry's reflective state tunes into subtle cues like the phone's silencing, signaling a breach in trust. The first warning sign was already here, in Vivian's hesitant movements and masked composure, which emotionally evoke unease, underscoring how long-term loss of intimacy fosters vulnerability to perceived threats. Interpersonally, her resigned personality creates a barrier, where routine silences mask deeper disconnections, leading Henry to internalize doubts rather than confront them. A typical mistake is to think that this is just a phase, as Henry justifies it as fatigue, implying denial to preserve the marital facade. Thematically, it explores trust's gradual erosion in aging relationships, where small inconsistencies accumulate, amplifying anxiety and setting a foundation for betrayal's consequences. This event reveals psychological conclusions. Reflective individuals like Henry may overanalyze, prolonging emotional isolation, yet it plants seeds for growth by awakening awareness of unmet needs, encouraging eventual pursuit of clarity over complacency. Our ordinary life unfolded in the predictable cadence of rural Vermont, where mornings began with the soft light filtering through lace curtains in our bedroom, casting dappled patterns on the quilt she'd sewn decades ago, its faded colors a testament to time's gentle erosion. I'd rise first, padding to the kitchen in slippers worn thin from countless treks across the creaky pine floors, brewing coffee whose rich, bitter scent filled the house as Vivian stirred, her movements slow and resigned, as if each day required a quiet surrender to routine. At the college, surrounded by stacks of dog-eared books and the murmur of students in the hallways, I'd lose myself in lectures, but evenings brought us back together for simple meals, perhaps a stew simmering on the stove, its savory steam fogging the windows, where conversations had dwindled to comments on the weather or our children's latest updates, her responses brief, her eyes often drifting to the horizon visible through the pane. That night, as the fire's glow danced shadows across her face, Vivian announced over dessert, a homemade apple pie whose cinnamon warmth contrasted the cooling room, that she was planning to attend a book club gathering with her old friend Margaret the following evening, a casual outing at the local library cafe that she described with a casual shrug, her fork tracing idle patterns in the flaky crust. But I noticed the way her gaze lingered on her phone rather than meeting mine, a strange glance that held a hint of secrecy, and when another message buzzed faintly, she excused herself to the kitchen, her footsteps measured but hurried, returning with a forced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Internally, doubts stirred like leaves in a gentle breeze. Was this emotional resignation in her, this detachment, just the toll of years, or something deeper? I justified it as fatigue from her part-time job at the town bookstore, questioning if my own reflective nature had contributed to our intimacy's fade, but the inconsistency in her stories, mentioning Margaret, yet forgetting details of past meetings, hinted at hidden layers. As we retired to bed, the house settling with pops and creaks from the cooling timbers, I lay awake, the moonlight slanting through the window onto her sleeping form, her breathing even but distant, leaving me with a hook of quiet concern. What if this outing was more than it seemed, and the phone's secrets were unraveling threads I hadn't yet pulled? The days following Vivian's announcement carried a subtle undercurrent of change, like the first chill winds signaling winter's approach, as I noticed her phone calls becoming more frequent, her voice dropping to hushed tones in the garden where the scent of fading roses mingled with the crisp autumn air, her furtive glances over her shoulder stirring a quiet anxiety within me that contrasted the calm facade of our daily life. In the kitchen one morning, sunlight streaming through the glass panes and illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, she answered a call with a soft "Hello?" Her body turning away from me as she stirred oatmeal on the stove, the spoon clinking rhythmically against the pot. But her delayed responses, pauses filled with unspoken words, left me with a racing heartbeat, hope flickering to worry as I pretended to read the newspaper, its pages crinkling under my tense fingers. She ended the call abruptly, her hand trembling slightly as she set the phone down, offering an evasive, "Just Margaret confirming details." But her eyes avoided mine, a small lie that gnawed at my reflective emotional state, pulling me into a struggle between trust and emerging suspicion. Vivian's evasive behavior during the call exemplifies the build-up of suspicion through interpersonal cues, psychologically illustrating how her resignation amplifies Henry's internal conflict, oscillating between hope and worry in a marriage starved of intimacy. The trembling hand and averted eyes emotionally trigger frustration as denial mechanisms, rationalizing as minor lies, delay acknowledgement of betrayal, perpetuating emotional highs and lows. Interpersonally, this dynamic reveals power imbalances in resigned partnerships, where secrecy erodes mutual openness, fostering isolation and fear. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, as unaddressed evasions allow distrust to deepen, transforming passive reflection into active anxiety. Thematically, it addresses denial's role in sustaining dysfunctional bonds, where small evidence like hushed tones hints at romantic entanglements, leading to consequences like relational fracture. This key event underscores emotional conclusions. In long-term unions, detachment breeds suspicion, but Henry's struggle signals nascent growth, shifting from passive justification to proactive scrutiny, ultimately highlighting resilience's emergence from pain and the value of confronting subtle deceptions for personal integrity. At work, amid the musty smell of old books in my office and the distant chatter of students echoing down the hall, frustration built during a minor conflict with a colleague over curriculum changes, his dismissive wave mirroring Vivian's growing detachment, amplifying my inner tension and making me question if I was projecting my marital woes outward. Evenings brought more evidence. During dinner, the table set with our familiar china patterned with delicate vines, she checked messages under the guise of adjusting her napkin, her anxious gestures, fingers tapping lightly on the wood, betraying nervousness, and when I asked about her day, her answers were evasive, laced with nervous behavior like averting her gaze to the window where leaves rustled in the breeze. Hints of a romantic affair surfaced subtly. One afternoon, returning early from campus, I overheard a phone conversation from the porch, her laughter soft and intimate, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in years, but she claimed it was a bookstore customer, her cheeks flushing under the porch light's warm glow. Contrast defined those moments. The calm external scenes of our walks along the gravel path bordering our property, the earthy scent of fallen leaves underfoot, clashing with my inner turmoil, where doubt morphed into fear, my mind racing with images of her with someone else. Almost certain at times, like when a strange cologne lingered on her coat, musky and unfamiliar, dismissed as a hug from a friend, I still tried to believe, clinging to memories of our intimate past to quell the anger bubbling beneath. Emotional highs and lows plagued me, hope during shared quiet evenings by the fire, worry turning to suspicion as odd meetings were mentioned casually, her hands folding and unfolding a throw blanket with delayed responses to my questions. The growing distrust manifested physically, a sense of betrayal tightening my chest like the encroaching frost on the windows, leaving me in a state of gradual emotional instability, each small mystery a cliffhanger pulling me deeper into uncertainty. Compelled by the accumulating shadows of doubt, I initiated my cautious investigation one crisp afternoon, the house silent save for the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hall, its rhythmic cadence underscoring the tense silence as I approached Vivian's dresser drawer, my hands cold despite the sunlight filtering through the bedroom window and warming the braided rug underfoot. Moral dilemmas weighed heavily, betraying her privacy versus seeking truth. As I sifted through scarves and jewelry with slow movements, my breathing shallow and paused, discovering a receipt for a cafe in the next town, dated during a supposed solo errand, a small victory that quickened my pulse but led to a setback when I realized it could be innocent, a red herring twisting my suspicion into knots. Observing her more intently that evening, as she prepared tea in the kitchen under the soft glow of the overhead light, I noted her phone's dim screen lighting up with notifications, the soft chime piercing the air, her quick glance and mild excuse, work email, delivered with a resigned sigh, her fingers fidgeting nervously on the mug's handle. Small triumphs interspersed with obstacles built the cat-and-mouse tension, checking her browser history on the shared computer in the study, the keyboard's keys clicking softly under my hesitant presses, revealed searches for romantic getaways, but an unexpected detail, a bookmark for anniversary ideas, misled me briefly, stirring pain and disappointment amid my growing determination. Henry's methodical evidence-gathering reflects a moral dilemma in betrayed relationships, psychologically balancing trust's remnants against suspicion's drive, as red herrings like anniversary bookmarks intensify cognitive dissonance and emotional pain. The hesitant presses and tense silence evoke uncertainty, illustrating how loss of intimacy motivates invasive actions, risking guilt while building determination. Interpersonally, Vivian's noticing suspicion prompts mild defenses, heightening cat-and-mouse tension and exposing resigned personalities' avoidance of vulnerability. A typical mistake is to think that this is just a phase, but Henry's persistence counters denial, navigating victories and setbacks to affirm self-protection. Thematically, it explores betrayal's consequences, where indirect clues accumulate, forcing reflection on marital neglect. This event offers psychological insights. Investigation transforms passive reflection into agency, though mixed emotions like anger and disappointment test resolve. Ultimately, it fosters growth by challenging ethical boundaries, preparing for confrontation and emphasizing that uncovering truth, despite obstacles, empowers individuals to reclaim narrative control in fading partnerships. Internal thoughts swirled in monologue, anger at the potential deception mixing with the ache of lost intimacy, yet trust lingered like a fading echo. One night, rain pattering against the roof in a steady drum, I waited until she slept, her form outlined in the bed's shadows, and with nervous gestures, my hand trembling as I reached for her phone on the nightstand, I unlocked it using our wedding date, scrolling through messages in the dim glow, the screen's cool light casting eerie reflections on my face. She stirred slightly, noticing my suspicion the next day with a mild defense. "Why so curious lately?" Her voice even but eyes resigned, avoiding confrontation. The dramatic element unfolded during an accidental encounter. Driving to town for groceries, the wipers swishing rhythmically against the windshield, I spotted her car at park, and approaching discreetly, saw her with a man, tall, silver-haired, engaged in tense conversation, their bodies close but not touching, his hand on her arm in a gesture of comfort. Frozen behind a tree, the cold bark rough against my palm, I overheard fragments. "We can't keep this up," fueling mixed emotions, but as he left, no kiss exchanged, it left a cliffhanger. Was this the lover, or something else? The mysterious clue, a name, Douglas, mentioned in passing, propelled me forward, determination hardening amid the rain's chill, knowing indirect confirmation loomed. The truth surfaced indirectly on a stormy evening, thunder rumbling like distant accusations as I sat in the living room, the candle flames flickering erratically on the mantel and casting wavering shadows across the walls, when Vivian returned from another book club, her coat damp with rain, the door creaking open with a groan that mirrored my internal struggle. Undeniable proof came not from confrontation but from an overheard phone call in the hallway, her voice low and resigned as she spoke to Douglas. "I can't leave him yet, it's too complicated." The words drifting to me like smoke, shattering the illusion with an unexpected twist. Her sister, calling moments later and revealed in a slip, confirmed the affair indirectly by mentioning "that man from the store," a neighbor's observation tying it all together. The indirect discovery via overheard call and sister's slip represents the emotional climax, psychologically unleashing grief stages, shock to disappointment, in Henry, as the twist exposes betrayal's depth in intimacy-deprived marriages. Vivian's resigned tone and gaslighting excuses emotionally contrast her panic with Henry's composure, highlighting manipulation rooted in avoidance. Interpersonally, Douglas's arrival disrupts illusions, revealing how detachment drives external connections, eroding trust irreparably. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, but the revelation facilitates catharsis, swinging from rage to resolve. Thematically, it emphasizes consequences of betrayal, where excuses amplify isolation, forcing recognition of mutual neglect. This event catalyzes growth, affirming Henry's control over reactions amid swings. Emotionally, post-confrontation exhaustion yields clarity, illustrating resilience from indirect confirmation. Overall, it concludes that such revelations dismantle denial, transforming pain into empowerment and underscoring interpersonal lessons. Resigned dynamics mask insecurities, but facing truth promotes self-agency and healthier boundaries. My heart swung from rage to shock, the room's air thick with the scent of wet wool from her coat, as I rose slowly, maintaining composure despite the anger surging within, understanding I could only control my response. "Who is Douglas?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with tension, the question hanging in the pauses filled with rain's patter on the windows, her face paling in the candlelight, eyes widening in fear before she sank into a chair, her hands trembling on the armrests. Tears welled, spilling over in quiet sobs, her excuses tumbling out in short phrases. "It's not what you think. I was lonely." Gaslighting attempts to manipulate the narrative, blaming our loss of intimacy. But her body language betrayed her, shoulders slumping in resignation, quiet sighs punctuating the despair. The climax intensified as Douglas arrived unannounced, the door's knock echoing like fate, rain dripping from his umbrella as he entered tense and composed, his presence a reveal that shattered remaining doubts. He was her colleague from the bookstore, their affair born of shared confidences. Emotional contrast heightened the drama, Vivian panicking, her hands waving erratically, Douglas rigid, jaw set, me composed, breathing measured amid the swings to disappointment. "How long?" I demanded, pauses stretching as she admitted months, her voice breaking, the light falling on her tear-streaked face in stark relief. Resolve settled as I declared. "This ends now." My growth evident in recognizing my agency, the confrontation's catharsis leaving me drained. After they left, him escorting her out in silence, the door shutting with a final click, my emotional state shifted to profound resolve, the betrayal's pain raw but clarifying, like lightning illuminating long-ignored shadows. Vivian's reaction unfolded in waves of quiet pleas and resigned acceptance, her voice soft during discussions in the sunlit kitchen, the air carrying the scent of fresh bread she'd baked as a gesture, but family impacts rippled through calls with our children, their voices tinny over the phone, shock turning to support, while legal consultations in a dimly lit attorney's office, papers rustling under fluorescent lights, outlined financial divisions that added practical tension. Inner conflicts tormented me, struggling with emotions of betrayal and moral dilemmas about forgiveness, the loss of intimacy now glaring, but small victories, like reclaiming my study for writing, books rearranged with deliberate calm, countered setbacks such as finding old love letters, their faded ink stirring fleeting doubt. Relief began to emerge, my heart calming during solitary evenings by the fire, muscles relaxing as clarity dawned, confidence building in the decision to separate. Henry's decision amid aftermath reflects personal growth from betrayal, psychologically evolving reflective tiredness into autonomy by rejecting destruction, as Vivian's pleas and family impacts test moral dilemmas. Physical sensations like calming heart symbolize release from intimacy's loss, interpersonally establishing boundaries against resignation's toxicity. Small victories in reclaiming spaces counter setbacks, building relief and clarity. A typical mistake is to think that this is just a phase, but minimal dialogue emphasizes victory, using symbolism like closing doors for closure. Thematically, it explores betrayal's consequences as transformative, shifting power dynamics and fostering confidence. This event highlights emotional conclusions. Separation mitigates ongoing distress, turning inner conflicts into forward reflection. Ultimately, it illustrates how navigating post-betrayal tensions cultivates resilience, breaking cycles of denial and enabling self-respect, preparing for peaceful resolution through empowered choices. One dawn, as sunrise painted the sky in soft pinks visible through the window, Vivian approached with minimal dialogue, her eyes downcast, murmuring, "I understand." The words powerful in their simplicity, emphasizing my victory as I replied, "It's time," refusing to be anchored by the past. Internal monologue reflected on our years, the intimacy lost to routine, and a future unburdened, the door closing behind her as she packed, its latch clicking symbolically like a chapter's end. Physical sensations of lightness filled me, like the first breath of fresh air after a storm, hints of resolution forming in plans for travel, the tension controlled but easing into preparation for peaceful closure. With the divorce finalized in a neutral courthouse, the judge's gavel echoing softly and papers signed under the scent of polished wood, clear boundaries established like fences around our once shared fields, I embraced personal empowerment in my solitary farmhouse life, the quiet now a canvas for growth rather than emptiness. New habits took root, morning walks through dew-kissed meadows, the fresh air invigorating my lungs with earthy crispness, birdsong filling the silence as I strode with renewed purpose, afternoons devoted to hobbies like woodworking in the barn, the saw's rhythmic hum and wood shavings scent grounding me in independence. Friends from college reconnected over coffee in town cafes, steam rising from mugs amid laughter that built confidence, free from emotional resignation, fostering inner growth that transformed betrayal's sting into wisdom. Freedom manifested in simple joys, brewing tea at dawn, sunlight streaming golden through windows onto open books, or evening music from the old record player, vinyl crackling with melodies that evoked calm satisfaction. Reflections deepened my understanding, lessons in nurturing intimacy to prevent detachment, personal growth from indirect discovery leading to strength, the betrayal a catalyst for self-discovery. Closure arrived peacefully, a sense of catharsis in watching seasons change from the porch, slight hope for companionship on equal terms. Overall, this experience revealed psychological insights. Emotional detachment signals deeper rifts, but confronting them yields empowerment, leaving relief, faint bitterness, and profound wisdom. In resolution, Henry's independent life signifies post-betrayal empowerment, psychologically integrating lessons from detachment into wisdom, as new habits replace resignation with confidence. Sensory details like sunlight evoke catharsis, emotionally supplanting bitterness with calm strength, interpersonally freeing him from manipulative dynamics for equitable hopes. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, clinging to pasts, but Henry's changes affirm satisfaction in solitude. Thematically, it stresses gross triumph, where consequences yield closure and hope. This phase concludes that betrayal catalyzes self-discovery, promoting emotional maturity. Overall, it offers insights. Resilience from adversity transforms dependence into authenticity, leaving relief and subtle optimism. The narrative traces Henry's arc from detachment to empowerment, emphasizing psychological themes like trust erosion through resignation and denial's delay of confrontation. Key events illustrate how intimacy loss breeds suspicion, leading to indirect discovery and relational dissolution, with consequences rippling to family and self. Interpersonal dynamics reveal guardedness as intimacy's barrier, fostering isolation until growth emerges. Henry's evolution exemplifies resilience, shifting denial to acceptance, offering catharsis via peaceful closure. Lessons highlight early communication's value in preventing escalation, and betrayal's role in unveiling strength, providing listeners with emotional wisdom on navigating long-term betrayals toward personal freedom and maturity.